When a person attaches themselves and their identity, meaning their state of being and their state of existence at a certain given point in time, when a person attaches themselves to everything that is external of them and relies on outcomes and possessions and success and status and whatever else, when a person relies on those things for their sense of self, for their identity, they become very unstable. They become very unsteady and unpeaceful. And the reason that this happens is because the world that is external of you, the world around you, is impermanent. Everything is always changing. Everything is a waveform. It goes up and down and up and down. And so if you are attached to the things that are moving up and down, you are going to go up and down, up and down, up and down. The cause of this is because of a simple misunderstanding that you are just this identity. You believe that you are this body, you are just this mind, and that you are a temporary and transient visitor in this universe that you have come into, and you don't know why you're here, you don't know how you got here, and you believe that you came into this world and that eventually you are going to come out of this world. And we believe that we ourselves are an impermanent facet of this universe. And while it is true that the form that we exist in is impermanent, it is undeniable that what really makes us up has always been here and is always going to be here. Science has proven this to us. We know that this universe is made up of matter. We know that this world that we live in is made up of matter, and that all matter is created by the same fundamental things. When you break it down small enough, you can see that it's all made of the same stuff. And so whatever conditions are necessary for consciousness to arise, if everything else in this universe has always been here and will always be here, then we can assume that consciousness also has always been here and will always be here. And it is something that sort of, instead of being something which arises out of nowhere, it is much more likely that consciousness, self-awareness, is something that is inherently existing in this world in the same way that all other energy forms do, whether it's matter or light or heat or electricity or whatever. All other forms of energy already exist in this world, and whatever manifestation or form of energy that you see is simply the collection of that energy brought into a single space. So whenever you see a light, the heat energy and the photons that make that light shine have always existed in the universe. Whatever it is that was necessary for the light to arise was already there. But when you see the light and somebody turns the light on, you can see that the heat energy and the photons, the light that is emanating from that light bulb, have simply been brought into a single place and collected, sort of concentrated into one area. And the same thing goes with all forms of energy, so why would consciousness be any different? And so what you can gain from this, what you can understand, is that your consciousness, this individual sense of self that you have, is actually one concentrated area of a wider field, a larger field of consciousness that has already been existing in this universe, maybe in different forms. But the things that were necessary for consciousness to quote unquote arise in this universe were already here. They have always been here and will always be here. And so what you can understand from this is that although this body, although this mind, although this set of circumstances and this individual sense of self-experience that you're having in this moment is temporary, the real you, the deep down true you that is beneath the ego, beneath the illusion of temporary form, has always been here and will always be here. And so this is the fundamental problem that we have as people. The fundamental problem is that we are identifying ourselves with this individual form. And I've had some people commenting on my videos recently saying, well, isn't it necessary for us to identify with an individual form in order to operate in this universe? No, I would say that it's the exact opposite. Our identification with this individual form is the root of all of our suffering. And the root of all of our suffering is the root of all of our violence. All wars, all genocide, all gentrification, all discrimination, all of the negative things that human beings do to other human beings arise from our suffering. And our suffering arises from our identification with an individual self. And the friction that people have with letting go of this concept, letting go of the individual self, the friction that we have, the fear that we have is that we are somehow going to, if we don't identify with this individual self, then we are somehow going to fall apart and not want to do anything, and that society is going to collapse, and that we're not going to pursue any of our goals or strive for anything. And this is also untrue. This is the ego. If you believe that, it is your ego telling you that by letting go of this individual sense of self, by letting go of this identification that you have with this temporary form, that you are going to die. That's what the ego wants you to believe. And it is not true. In fact, you become even better at operating in the world when you realize that you are the world. So this is the problem that arises from identifying with this sense of self, is that you and I are actually a vast ocean. You are watching this, and the reason that everything resonates with each other on a level of vibrational frequency, the real reason is that everything is an ocean. If you think of everything, my existence, your existence, the existence of the whole universe, if you think of it all as a singular ocean, and everything that arises as form, everything that fluctuates, is the surface of that ocean and the waves that are on the surface. And sometimes the surface of the ocean is very tumultuous. Sometimes it's very windy and rainy and rough, and there's big waves. And other times it's very peaceful. There's not a lot of wind. It's very sunny, and the surface of the ocean is very calm and flat. Now, the only problem is that some of us have identified ourselves as the waves of the ocean, or more specifically, a single wave on the ocean. And if you identify yourself and you believe yourself to be the wave of the ocean and not the rest of it, then your existence is very unstable and uncertain and scary. But the truth is that you are actually the whole ocean, not just the wave. And as a matter of fact, you and I are the same ocean. You and I are the same body of water on which the waves arise. The misunderstanding is that by letting go of being the wave, you will cease to be anything. But by letting go of being the wave, you can see that you are the ocean. And by seeing that you are the ocean, you will never be lacking. By understanding that you are the ocean, you will never be subject, you will never be truly tortured or suffering at the hands of the impermanent world that is around you. Because no matter what happens on the surface of the ocean, the water that is deeply underneath the surface is always undisturbed. And so, you are not going to lose your connection to other people by disidentifying with this individual self. In fact, your connection to other people is going to grow deeper. You are not going to become apathetic and not want to do anything with your life by disidentifying with this individual self. Actually, your ability and desire to do things will become better. It'll become more of your ability to do something will not be what your sense of self and what your sense of worthiness rest upon. And when your sense of self and your sense of worthiness stops resting upon the outcome of what you're trying to do in your life, you become free to do whatever you want. And so whatever you want to achieve becomes not such an insurmountable task, but something that you can simply just go and do. You see, so no, you're not going to stop operating in this world just because you choose to see that you are not just this body and not just this mind. You're going to operate in the world at an even better, even more than you did before, even more deeply, even more enthusiastically, even more ambitiously, with less fear. Because you're not dependent on what is happening around you to derive happiness or a positive experience from. Because by letting go of what is positive and negative in my life and understanding that I am actually a deep peace, I am peace. And by understanding that the positive and negative that happens in my life is not, although I may feel sorrow or sadness or happiness and gratification, underneath it all is a deep peace. And that peace is joy. It's a type of joy, a type of positive experience which has no dual opposite. It has no negative to it. In the same way that everything else does. Everything else in this world is a world of polar opposites, always. For every happy experience, there is an unhappy experience. For richness, there is poorness. For hot, there is cold. For up, there is down. And for every crest of every wave, there is a trough. But moving deeper inward, meditating on your own mortality, meditating on the fact that this individual self is temporary, but you, the real you, is not. It removes you from this world of polar opposites. It removes you from this world of polarizing experiences where everything is either positive or negative, and I can never find steady ground because I am constantly being affected by everything that is happening around me. Because everything that is happening around me, regardless of how wealthy I am, regardless of what family I was born into, what country I live in, everything will always be positive and negative. It will always go up and down. So I encourage you to let go of the fear that by practicing this, by learning to understand this depth that you have within yourself, let go of the fear that this is somehow the end of your life. Because it's not, it's the very beginning.